I'd like to talk to you about 12 ways to improve your survey design. And I'm going to start from 12 and work up to 1. So number 12, what are your assumptions when writing your questions? Your assumptions could be wrong or at least partly wrong. Some reasons for being wrong include multiple causation. And multiple causation means that several things may be, or something may be caused by several things, or something may cause several things. So for example, there might be more than one reason why a person is unemployed. There could be more than one reason why a person gets good grades. So for example, somebody gets good grades. Probably multiple things are causing it. Often they are people who pick up information faster, which is one of the things measured on intelligence tests. Could be that they study more. It could be they study more effectively in groups, and could be quite a few different things. They might be more rested, and so think about what are several things that might be causing what you're interested in. Number 2, common cause. Common cause means that both A and B are caused by C. So for example, let's say that you notice that there's a correlation between ice cream sales and drowning. And so if there's more people drowning, there seems to be more people eating ice cream. Now, it's probably not that people who drown are likely to eat more ice cream. It's probably not that ice cream consumption causes people to drown. Probably it's more likely that in the summertime, more people are likely to be around the water, and being around the water is one of the things that normally is helpful in drowning. And I don't mean to be too negative about that, but yeah, if you're around water more often, more things can go wrong. Likewise, when it's hot weather, more people like to eat ice cream. That sounds really good right now. Number 3, reverse causation. Reverse causation is when we see a correlation between event A and event B. We may assume A caused B, when in fact B caused A. My favorite story about this is I notice that Christmas cards normally come before Christmas. And we also know that normally what came first causes what came second. Therefore, Christmas cards is what caused Christmas. Well, when I talk to my classes about that, most of them think, oh, that's absurd. Christmas cards do not cause Christmas. Everyone knows that Christmas causes Christmas cards. And I think they're right. It's a great case of reverse causation. But, you know, it's not always obvious. And in fact, is a case where what came second caused what came first. Other cases of reverse causation. We notice that bigger fires tend to have more firemen, and smaller fires, fewer firemen are sent. So it may be that more firemen cause bigger fires, and fewer firemen cause fewer or smaller fires. So therefore, we should always send fewer firemen. Well, obviously, it's more likely bigger fires is you send a lot more firemen to fight that fire. Fairly obvious case, but other cases aren't quite as obvious. Number 11, when certain answers are not socially desirable. Allow people to answer the question anonymously by assuring, and also you need to assure them that their answers are completely confidential. You need to do it. I mean, definitely don't say one thing and do another. And some ways of having that confidentiality, they should only be identified by a code number so their answers can't be traced back to them. Often happens in medical research that way. Their answers should not be recorded in an interview, but rather using a computer terminal or paper questionnaire. And, if you're asking people about their whether they've committed adultery, you probably don't want the spouse there, at least if you want to get an honest response. So be very careful. There's a lot of things that people don't want to get in trouble for or look bad. Number 10, pre-test your questions with a small group. Obviously, you don't want to send it out to thousands of people. At least that would be a little expensive. It might be nice to test it that way. But the SAT, the ACT normally test their questions. A lot of times you find that what you think people are going to be answering, or the way people you think are going to interpret it, is not. I've been in meetings where I've thought something's been absolutely obvious, and then I've had at one time as we were voting on what one sentence meant, and half the committee decided it meant something that I was like, how can you read that sentence and think it means that? But likewise, in writing papers, it's always better to have somebody look at your manuscript because invariably you're not going to see something. Number 9, make sure that you include all possible answers, including I don't know. For example, I don't know how many times I've been given surveys where I've stopped filling them out because what I think is the right answer is not included in the sheet. Or a lot of times I don't have a real feeling either way. I want to answer I don't know, and they don't include it. And I don't like that. So think through your question. What are all the possible answers? Which helps to test it, to see what people might think that you may not have considered. Number 8, avoid asking more than one question in the same question. Don't ask things like, do you have a gun and do you believe in gun control? Those are two separate issues that you might want to ask. So one question at a time, please. Number 7, halo effect. Halo effect is when a person or group is judged based on one aspect and then generalizing to other aspects. For example, let's say that Princeton University does not have an undergraduate major in business administration, and that I went on there and I couldn't find one, and let's assume that's true. No undergraduate major. But I bet you that if you ask people, what do you think the quality of the Princeton University undergraduate major in business administration, you would probably get people to say, oh, I think it's great. They have this halo effect that they think, oh yeah, all the departments at these schools are high quality. Which does make it easier for them to recruit new members. Likewise, if you have a poll or interview people, somebody from Harvard, Princeton, is probably going to say, oh yeah, that's a great response, versus somebody who might even give a better response, such as somebody maybe from, not as well-known schools, such as Ball State University. So people do often generalize based on just limited information. Number 6, positive analogies may cause people to answer more positively. Negative analogies may cause people to respond more negatively. So a positive analogy would be something like, he's a outstanding, we find that people, I'm not even thinking of a positive analogy. I mean, the first one that comes to my mind is a case of a few years back, there was a case of Bosnia, and a lot of people would use the example of the Vietnam War, saying the Vietnam War was very negative, we got stuck there, very negative analogy, don't mean to be negative, and while other people just said, hey, this is more like this is a case of going out and helping your neighbor, especially for the Europeans, helping to save lives, much more of a positive analogy. Number 5, vividness. If there's a gas spill and you just show, here's the river, it's not going to be nearly as vivid, but if you show all these dead fish on the side of the banks of the river, that's going to be much more vivid. People are going to approach that much more emotionally. A few years ago, there was a person who worked with famine relief in Africa, and they mentioned normally you can't even get the Western media to pay attention until you have really great pictures, and those great pictures are normally dead bodies and kids who are looking very malnourished. And her point was saying, well, it'd be nice if we could get help before that, but we don't have the vivid pictures yet. Number 4, anchoring. People may be anchored to the original number presented to them and may be unwilling to move very far from it. For example, let's say the population of Egypt is 60 million people. If I start at 10 million and asked, do you think the population of Egypt is greater or less than $10 million? Most people, I find, answer a little bit more than 10 million. Or first of all, they say more than 10 million, and then I ask, well, what do you think it is? They'll normally answer about 30 million. If I start at 100 million asked, is it greater or less than that? They'll say less than it. What do you think it is? Most of them will answer about 80 million. Well, that's what, 80 minus 30 is what, a 50 million person difference. And, you know, it could be, the population, and let's say, is, as I mentioned, 60 million. It's a little bit closer to the 80, but that's just because it was above 50. And so, people may anchor based on the information you give them or that they may have recently seen. Number 3, priming. Researchers may prime or induce people to answer certain ways based on word order or the words that they use. Lily Tomlin, some years ago, had a joke that she used where she said, if peanut oil comes from peanuts and corn oil comes from corn, where does baby oil come from? Well, let's hope it doesn't come from babies, and I can assure you that it doesn't. But it's a great example of priming. Or if you use negative terms, this dishonest, reprehensible representative, that's going to prime for a much more negative response. Or if you say this public servant who has sacrificed many hours of his life to help others, that's going to have a different response. Number 2, use simple and clear words. A lot of times it's very hard to determine what a person's asking. A lot of times there might be grammatical mistakes that people get focused on. A lot of times the questions might be too long. So it's nice to have it nice, short, clear, simple wording that's easy to understand. Number 1. One of the fundamental flaws of a survey is that there's no particular benefit for truthful answers or cost for untruthful answers. Some years ago, there was a woman who was the only voter in an election in the state of Texas. And this was just a very localized election. It was for a bond issue for building new roads and sewer lines for new development. And she mentioned that when she studied this issue, it was millions of dollars on the line. She wasn't going to have to, if it didn't work, she wasn't going to have to pay it. But she felt very accountable, very responsible for her decision. She said, I've never studied an issue as much in my life. Normally I go into an election and, I might have a certain feelings, but I don't really study out the issues. But this time I spent a few weeks thinking about it and getting more information. So it's one of the big problems is a lot of times, since people don't have any particular benefit for different or cost for answers, a lot of times they just make it up. And in fact, a lot of times people say, oh yeah, I'm pretty sure that their responses were just totally made up. So think about different ways that you can get people to answer honestly. And here's 12 ways to help you do it. It's hard to get all of them, but hopefully it helps. And so 12 ways to improve your survey design. Thank you.